Hi, I'm Francine, and I'm going to talk about the research I'm currently doing for my MPhil at Sunset, funded by the ETF. I'm not going to talk about results, because this isn't a amuse-bouche, but mainly also because it's early days and I'm still reading and asking more questions than I've answers to, really. So I'm going to talk about the initial project and how it developed and keeps developing as I read and make contacts through networks such as FE Research Meet. I'm a teacher educator, and I wanted the PGC trainees on the post-compulsory education and training course I teach to have the opportunity to observe each other, but without any performative strings attached, so no grading or anything. They wanted to observe each other, but strategically it was difficult as they were part-time students with lots of other commitments, and going out to see each other at various settings was not going to happen. So O'Leary writes about the benefits of peer-based observation, and I was particularly drawn to what he says about the potential for ongoing improvements in pedagogic knowledge and skills. So I was really motivated to find a solution to the problem of the trainees not being able to observe each other. And the solution was to video themselves, to reflect on their teaching and then share the video or extracts of it with groups of peers. And in order to avoid overcritical feedback, or more realistically perhaps trainees' fear of that happening, we did training on firstly how to watch yourself with purpose using the Harvard Video Observation Toolkit, and also we used 3 questions to direct trainees when observing each other, also taken from O'Leary. And so these are the 3 questions that I asked them to use. So originally the idea was to support trainees in reflecting on their own teaching and development, both through watching themselves and also by observing their peers and asking them to consider what they'd learned from the exercise. These are a couple of quotes from the trainees on the initial project. And then through talking about the project with other teachers at work, at conferences, research meets, and reading more, the basic premise of the project, of my research, has moved to thinking about the impact of pedagogical conversations on practice and agency. And by agency, I'm thinking of things like the confidence to either change or not change what we do with our learners. And thinking about my reading, Biesta, Priestley and Robinson identified teacher talk as at most a necessary condition for their achievement of agency. So my research has also moved from focusing on reflective practice to thinking about using a diffractive lens. I say thinking because I'm still struggling to articulate what that really means. I read it and it makes sense, but explaining it still feels kind of alien. So using the image of a breakwater helps for me. In reflection, so I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in reflection, the waves bounce back kind of uninterrupted. And if you're looking at that as like looking back on our own teaching, where reflection with no other point of reference can become kind of descriptive and narrow. And peer observation can be a tool for addressing this narrow perspective. Spectre refers to a diffractive gate, and there's a gateway here in the wall, and that opens up new areas of intelligibility. And in the image, you can see the ideas, the arrows moving in new directions, which is what I've been trying to get my head around. This idea of diffraction being a way of noticing differences and thinking about the impact of those differences resonates when thinking about peer observation, and Bozalak and Zembelias say that diffraction is understood by both Barrett and Haraway as a process of being attentive to how differences get made and what the effect of these differences are, and that's really what I'm thinking about, getting students to notice the difference and what the effects of those are. This is a quote from the latest iteration of the project, where I've talked about diffraction or diffractive practice with the trainees. And so this is a quote from a teacher who watched a video of her learners being taught by a colleague. And I think noticing the difference can occur in any observation. It doesn't have to be with someone from your own. But as I particularly like this idea of at the end where she says, I'd like to try a similar strategy if the opportunity arises. And I think that really brings home the idea of not just reflecting, but looking for differences and the effect of those differences. So the next steps with the research are going to be to find out what effect noticing the differences has, if any, on practice and agency. So it will be things like going back to this particular learner, this trainee, and finding out what happened if she did change and what the impact was. Okay. So here are some of the key references I've been using. Thank you for watching.